Inner peace, the Stoic journey to seeking prosperity and freedom. Hey guys, tonight we begin somewhere ancient, but also close, very close. You sit quietly, the world outside humming with sirens, schedules, and screens. But here, in this quiet moment, something shifts. You pull away from the noise, not physically, but mentally. You lean back, dim the chaos, and turn inward. And in that turning, you begin a journey thousands of years in the making. Imagine yourself walking the stone streets of Athens, where a man named Zeno, shipwrecked and broken, starts teaching in the painted porch, the Stoical. No throne, no temple, just the echo of sandals on marble and a handful of souls learning that peace isn't found in circumstance. It's born from control over your reactions to the uncontrollable. You probably won't survive this if you keep chasing serenity in a stormy world. Because here's the Stoic truth: the storm never ends. But you can become the stillness. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know, where are you listening from? And what time is it in your part of the world? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You sit at the crossroads of two worlds: the external world, loud and unpredictable, and the internal world, which, if left untended, feels just the same. Yet the Stoics teach something radical. You are not the storm. You are the sailor. You are not the flame. You are the hearth. The path to inner peace begins with a question you may never have asked. What can I actually control? Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, didn't start with power or wealth. He lost everything in a shipwreck. But in that loss, he found something unshakable: clarity. What remains when all else is stripped away is you and how you choose to see. The Stoics divided the world into two spheres: what is within your power and what is not. Within your power, your beliefs, your judgments, your choices. Beyond your power, everything else: weather, reputation, aging, even your loved one's actions. We cannot control the events that happen around us, Epictetus once said, but we can control how we respond to them. This isn't just philosophy, it's practical armor. Picture a Roman general receiving news of betrayal from within his own camp. Picture a modern executive being laid off after decades of loyalty. Picture yourself in a traffic jam, or a heartbreak, or a moment where life doesn't play fair. You can clench your fists, or you can breathe. Choose the second path, and you are already a Stoic. Historians still argue whether Stoicism was ever meant for ordinary people or only the elite thinkers and rulers of the ancient world. But daily journaling by emperors and quiet teachings from slaves suggest otherwise. This wasn't a theory to admire. It was a way to survive with dignity. The history of Stoicism winds through Greece into the heart of Rome. Zeno taught in Athens. Seneca wrote under the threat of Nero's madness. Epictetus, once a slave, rose to become one of the clearest voices on human freedom. And Marcus Aurelius, perhaps the most paradoxical of them all, sat atop the Roman Empire, writing humble reflections to himself. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Let that echo. You have power over your mind. And what a power that is. The Stoics didn't reject emotions. They simply refused to be enslaved by them. Joy, welcome it. Grief? Honor it. Anger? Recognize it. But never, ever let these guests become rulers in the house of your soul. The T.O.B. Stoic is not to be numb. It is to be prepared. And this preparation begins with small, conscious steps. Maybe tomorrow you pause before replying to that frustrating email. Maybe you say no when your instincts tell you to people please. Maybe you finally forgive yourself for something long past. This is Stoicism in practice. Not in scrolls, but in traffic, in conversations, in the moments when you could break, but choose not to. And while today's world spins faster than ever, the wisdom of these ancient minds feels freshly carved. Because the core truth hasn't changed. Your peace does not depend on the world. It depends on you. You begin to realize that inner peace isn't something you stumble into. It's something you choose, moment by moment, when you hold your center. Even as the world pulls at you. That doesn't mean perfection. Marcus Aurelius often wrote reminders to himself to stay calm, patient, just. If an emperor needed reminders, so will you. So tonight, as you lie there, soft breath syncing with the slow rhythm of your heart, ask yourself, what am I grasping too tightly? What have I let define my peace? You don't need to be perfect. You only need to practice. Imagine now, in the candlelit silence of your thoughts, that Stoicism is not a doctrine, but a door. On the other side, calm. On the other side, resilience. On the other side, you, whole and untouched by the world's chaos. The steps to cross are not dramatic. They are quiet, persistent. You become a Stoic not by title, but by choice. And tonight, you've already made the first one. That you don't walk this path alone. As the wind brushes softly across your face, you step forward into time, deeper into the worn sandals of those who came before you. Their footprints stretch across empires and prison cells, palaces and porches. 3 men whose lives couldn't have been more different, yet who all arrived at the same unshakable center. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus. You begin with Marcus, Emperor of Rome, leader of legions, master of a domain so vast it spanned deserts, mountains, and turbulent seas. But within himself, a man in constant battle, not with enemies, but with his own mind. Picture Marcus sitting alone in his tent on the battlefield, quill in hand, writing in what would become his meditations. He doesn't write to command others. He writes to remind himself. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. Imagine leading millions and still whispering to yourself about humility and virtue. Imagine power and choosing peace. Marcus wasn't born Stoic. He became one through practice. Each entry in his journal is a quiet wrestling match with frustration, pain, and fear. He faced betrayal from friends, plague in his empire, and the death of children. But what echoes is not his suffering. It's his serenity. Historians still argue whether Marcus's personal doubts weakened his rule or strengthened it. But what you feel, reading his private words to himself, is a man who mastered the external world by mastering the internal one first. Now the road leads you to Seneca. He's different. A thinker, a statesman. Imagine Rome's marble halls echoing, with the footsteps of a man torn between 2 worlds, philosophy and politics. Seneca was wealthy, educated, dangerously close to power. He served as advisor to the unstable Emperor Nero, living every day on a razor's edge. Despite the danger, or maybe because of it, Seneca's words are direct and sharp. It is not the things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Think about that. The things themselves are neutral. Only our labels, bad, unfair, devastating, give them teeth. Seneca wrote letters like they were lanterns in the dark, guides for his friend Lucilius and for us. He speaks of dying every day, not in despair, but as a reminder to live deliberately. Begin at once to live, he urges, and count each separate day as a separate life. You may wonder, how could a man so close to luxury, so tangled in politics, truly live the Stoic life? And that is where the debate endures. Stoic scholars still question whether Seneca practiced what he preached. But perhaps, like all of us, he simply tried. And maybe the trying is enough. You step further, and now you meet Epictetus in silk robes. No power. He enters from the margins, once a slave, later a free man, always a philosopher. Born into chains, Epictetus teaches freedom more clearly than anyone else, because he earned it, not through rebellion, but through perspective. Picture a cramped Roman room where students sit cross-legged before an older man with a limp, speaking not with grandeur, but with clarity. Some things are in our control, and others not. That is his gospel. He repeats it like breath. Like survival, Epictetus didn't write down his teachings. His student, Arian, did. And what survived are the discourses and Enchiridion, a handbook for life as raw and practical as the streets he walked. His voice is sharp, but never cruel. He tells you, stop whining, accept your fate, and live with dignity. And in that you feel a shift. You begin to see that Stoicism is not a one-size-fits-all robe. Marcus teaches serenity through leadership. Seneca teaches perspective through paradox. Epictetus teaches freedom from chains, physical and emotional. Their journeys are distinct, yet they orbit the same sun, control the inner life. And you will never be ruled by the outer one. Stoicism, then, isn't a single story. It's a library of lived philosophies. And what's fascinating is how these voices continue to ripple through time. Marcus Aurelius's writings are found today on nightstands of CEOs and soldiers alike. Seneca's letters circulate among therapists and thinkers. Epictetus's handbook is studied by athletes and minimalists, by anyone trying to live with less, yet be more. You might be lying there now wondering, could these ancient lessons really apply to your modern problems? You're not dealing with Roman invasions. You're facing deadlines, breakups, inflation, burnout. And still, Marcus whispers, you have power over your mind. Still, Seneca urges, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Still, Epictetus commands, don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. You start to feel their presence not as distant idols, but as fellow travelers. They also woke with fear. They also lost what they loved. They also stumbled, but they left you a map not of cities, but of choices. A Stoic chooses to reflect rather than react, to pause before panic, to speak from reason, not rage, and to die, not having conquered the world, but having ruled the one place that matters, the self. Tonight, let their lives be your lanterns. Let their flaws make you feel welcome. Let their resilience show you the road. You aren't asked to be perfect. You are only asked to stay awake, to your mind, your choices, your freedom. Marcus led armies with virtue. Seneca wrote letters with urgency. Epictetus taught slaves and senators alike. And now they teach you. Their words sit in your chest like coals, warm, glowing. You close your eyes. You aren't running. You're resting, yes. But you're also stepping slowly inward, toward peace, toward power, toward a life that, though filled with struggle, need not be ruled by it. The city is loud again. Alarms blare from phones, your inbox pings, and traffic builds outside your window like a storm swelling beneath the skyline. But you're not in that rush right now. You're here, floating between thoughts, breathing slower, and learning how an ancient path like Stoicism still winds its way through your modern life. You don't wear a toga. You don't debate in Roman courtyards. But the pressures you face, the inner battles, they're no less real. You might not fight barbarian invaders, but you battle deadlines that feel just as ruthless. You wrestle with doubt at 2 a.m., with a comment someone made, with an opportunity lost. These are today's skirmishes, and Stoicism still trains you for them. You start to see how this ancient philosophy isn't trapped in time. It breathes in your routine. It hides in your habits. It waits in the cracks of your most overwhelming days, ready to steady your soul. Take your work, for example. That place where ambition often collides with burnout. You sit under fluorescent lights, juggling tasks, navigating office politics, trying to make everyone happy. The pressure mounts. You feel the heat rise in your chest. But here's a Stoic question. Is this within my control? No? Then let it go. That client's attitude, your boss's delay, the project that's slipping through the cracks, none of that is yours to command. What is? Your response, your effort, your attitude. A Stoic at work does not panic when plans shift. She breathes. She adjusts. She leads calmly while others lose their grip. Like Marcus Aurelius in the tent before battle, she journals her frustrations, returns to reason, and acts from principle, not emotion. And when you bring that kind of energy to work, people notice. But more importantly, you notice. You feel lighter, focused. You stop letting work define your worth and start using it to sharpen your discipline. Now picture your relationships. Friends, family, partners, strangers who test your patience. These people are mirrors. They reflect what you carry inside. Stoicism doesn't ask you to detach from love, but to anchor yourself deeper within it. Think of Seneca, who wrote about friendship as a sacred bond, a place to practice virtue. A Stoic doesn't react to every insult. They don't cling to the need to be understood or validated. They love fully, but without dependency. They give without demanding. When your partner forgets something meaningful, when a friend disappoints you, when someone's anger seems unfair, breathe. Respond, don't react. Choose understanding, not domination. Speak with clarity, not ego. This isn't weakness. It's strength rooted in self-mastery. Historians and modern psychologists still debate whether Stoicism's emotional restraint is healthy in relationships or if it risks coldness. But true Stoicism doesn't mean suppressing emotions. It means guiding them with wisdom, not being dragged by them. And then there's mental health. You carry more than you let on. Anxiety whispers during quiet moments. Stress builds in your shoulders like bricks. Some days you want to escape your mind more than your schedule. And this is where Stoicism becomes a lifeline. Epictetus, once a slave, lived through brutality. Yet he taught that no man is truly free who is not the master of his own mind. You may not control your thoughts as they rise, but you can choose not to feed them. You ask yourself, is this fear real or is it imagined? Is this anger useful or is it noise? By naming your emotions, you diminish their grip. By observing your thoughts, you begin to separate yourself from them. Imagine each thought as a cloud. You are not the cloud. You are the sky. And you let it drift. That stoic resilience. Not a stiff upper lip, but a grounded awareness. You don't deny your emotions. You respect them. You just don't build your life around them. And now, let's talk about your money. Yes, your bank balance, your shopping cart, your cravings masked as needs. In a world of ads and algorithms designed to stir discontent, Stoicism whispers a dangerous rebellion. You have enough, Seneca wrote. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. Sit with that. Let it unsettle you. True wealth? It isn't a number. It's contentment that a Stoic spends intentionally, saves wisely, but most of all, learns to distinguish wants from values. They find joy in simplicity, peace in enough, and they sleep better because their worth isn't linked to what they own. And this isn't about being frugal for frugality's sake. It's about freedom, because every dollar you spend chasing more is a vote for slavery to craving. And every moment you sit quietly and say, I already have what I need, is a step toward inner liberation. Even the younger generations, born into chaos and complexity, are rediscovering this. Minimalism, mindfulness, journaling, these aren't trends, they're echoes of Stoic roots. You scroll past them on your feed. You see them in TED Talks and wellness apps. But strip away the buzzwords, and they're all pointing to the same truth. Control what you can, let go of the rest. Stoicism is not about withdrawing from life. It's about engaging with it more wisely. You begin to realize that everything in your modern life, your work, your relationships, your mental health, your finances, is either a distraction or a discipline. Stoicism helps you choose the latter, and in those choices, something shifts. You wake up with more clarity. You handle conflict with grace. You feel less rushed, less reactive, less lost, not because life has changed, but because you're becoming a modern Stoic. Not by title, but by temperament. Not by quoting Marcus, but by living like him. One moment, one breath, one choice at a time. So as you drift now, feel the quiet weight of these principles settle into your bones. Not burdens, but tools. Not rules, but freedoms. The world will still be loud tomorrow. Your phone will still ring. Life will still surprise you. But inside, a quieter, deeper place is forming, where no storm reaches, where peace lives, not because the world has calmed, but because you have. The night deepens, and your thoughts begin to slow. But now, another wave begins to rise, not from the world outside, but from within. Emotion, that invisible current that can carry you to joy or crash you against the rocks of regret. Tonight, you wade gently into it, not to escape, but to understand that you felt it. That sharp spike of anger when someone cuts you off mid-sentence. The dread that swells in your chest before a meeting. The hollow ache of sadness, unspoken, lingering like fog. Stoicism doesn't ask you to silence these emotions. It asks you to meet them with a new kind of strength. Imagine you're standing on a shore, watching the tide come in. The waves of emotion rise, crest, and recede. You don't dive into each one. You observe. You breathe. You choose. That's the Stoic approach. Epictetus taught. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. But how do you react wisely when the storm is inside your own heart? It begins with a separation, a subtle but powerful one, between emotion and reaction. Emotion is instinct. Reaction is choice. Feel anger? That's human. Act out of anger? That's optional. A Stoic pauses, not to suppress emotion, but to see it clearly before responding. You become a mirror, not a sponge. A calm presence in a world of reactivity. But don't mistake this for numbness. That's not what the Stoics stood for. Historians and modern thinkers still debate whether the Stoics were too cold, too distant. But those who lived it, like Seneca, who mourned deeply, or Marcus, who grieved the deaths of his children, show that Stoicism embraces emotion. It simply refuses to be ruled by it.s. Oh, how do you apply that today? Let's say you receive a hurtful message. Your first impulse is to lash out, defend yourself, or spiral into doubt. But a Stoic asks first, what is within my control here? The message? No. Your reply? Yes. You don't react. You reflect. You choose not to mirror pain with pain. You choose composure, not because you're weak, but because you're too strong to be led by impulse. And then there's fear. It creeps in at 3 a.m., whispering stories of failure, loss, rejection. It shows up before job interviews, before conversations that matter, before change. Fear is a signal, but not a command. The Stoics believed fear points to attachment. You fear losing what you cling to: status, control, comfort. So the practice becomes detachment, not in the cold sense of indifference, but in the warm sense of clarity. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself often, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. It's not morbid. It's liberating. If everything can be taken, then why cling so tightly? Why let fear dictate your steps? And yet, you will still feel it. That's why Stoics used daily practices to train the mind, like exercises for the soul. Point 1 is premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. You visualize challenges before they arise: the rude client, the missed train, the breakup. Not to wallow, but to prepare. So when it happens, you are not shocked. You are ready. You greet discomfort as an expected guest. Another practice? Journaling.at. Night, a Stoic might ask, what stirred my emotions today? Did I act from virtue or from impulse? This reflection isn't self-punishment, it's self-awareness. You track your patterns. You grow. You might try this tonight. Think back. When did you lose your temper? When did you feel shame or envy? What did those feelings reveal about your desires, your attachments? Then write, not for perfection, for honesty. There's also view from above, a visual shift. You imagine your life from a bird's eye perspective. Your worries shrink. Your frustrations dissolve. That email, that comment, that mistake, it's a flicker in the vast sky of your life. Why give it so much weight? Stoicism isn't about building walls. It's about opening windows, seeing clearly, choosing wisely. And the reward? Peace. When you control your reactions, you reclaim your power. When you observe emotion without obeying it, you find calm even in crisis. You begin to live with a kind of inner gravity, friends might ask, "How are you so calm?" And you won't always have an answer, because your peace won't be a performance. It'll be a practice. Stoicism teaches that emotions are natural, but your reaction determines your character. Anger can be redirected into courage. Grief can be softened into gratitude. Fear can become vigilance. Even joy, yes, joy, is guided. You don't chase highs or cling to fleeting pleasures. You appreciate without attachment. You smile without fear of loss. You understand that emotions are waves, and you are the shore, and slowly, steadily, something beautiful happens. Your conversations become gentler, your decisions clearer, your sense of self steadier, and no longer a leaf in the wind. Now, you are the tree, rooted, awake, and when the next emotional wave rises, because it will, you won't flinch. You'll nod, you'll breathe, you'll choose not to be swept away. And in that choice, you'll remember, you are not your emotions. You are the calm in the center of the storm that you've felt it before, even if you didn't name it. That tug of war between what the world demands and what your soul quietly whispers. It happens when you reach for your phone out of habit, when someone's opinion twists your peace into knots, when your plans crumble, and with them, your sense of control. You crave freedom, but not the kind sold on billboards or promised by vacation ads. You crave something deeper, something invisible, something within, inner freedom, and this, the Stoics say, is the only real freedom there is. You begin to see it clearly now. The cage isn't always physical. Most of the time, it's emotional, psychological, invisible, but you feel it. The way frustration, fear, craving, or the need to impress someone else locks you in. The Stoics didn't waste time fighting the world. They fought the urge to need it to be different. And in that shift, from resistance to acceptance, they found peace. Epictetus, once literally chained, taught, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Disregarding, not in the cold sense of apathy, but in the precise sense of letting go. Imagine waking up and not checking your notifications first. Imagine going through your day without the need for praise, likes, or approval. Imagine facing someone's harsh words and not needing to defend yourself because their judgment holds no power over your self-worth. That's the kind of freedom Stoicism trains you to build. But it starts with one simple and difficult truth. You don't control the world. You control you. You don't control traffic or aging or the economy. You don't control whether someone texts back, whether the company chooses you, or whether tomorrow goes according to plan. What you do control is how you respond to those things. And therein lies your liberation. You begin to notice the chains you didn't even know you were wearing. The chain of comparison, the chain of perfectionism, the chain of seeking to be understood in every conversation or winning every disagreement. And with each Stoic practice, a link falls away. Think about the last time you felt trapped. Maybe it was a situation at work. Maybe someone's opinion held your happiness hostage. Ask yourself, was the prison outside or in my perception? The Stoics would say, the mind is both the cell and the key. Marcus Aurelius put it plainly, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. Historians still explore whether Marcus's Stoicism as emperor was idealistic or achievable. But his meditations reveal a leader who wrestled daily with ego, desire, and disappointment, and kept choosing calm. Not because he had to, but because he understood. Only in mastering himself could he govern well. Now look at your own life. Your job, your family, your plans, they may never align perfectly. But if you stop waiting for everything to be just right before you feel free, you'll wait forever. Freedom starts now. It begins when you stop letting circumstances dictate your peace. When you pause, breathe, and choose clarity over chaos. You can't control whether people love you, but you can choose to love yourself through virtue and integrity. You can't control what happens tomorrow, but you can choose your attitude when tomorrow arrives. And perhaps the greatest illusion Stoicism shatters is this: that freedom is something you chase. It's not. It's something you release. You release the need to win, the need to be liked, the need to control how others see you. Each release brings a little more space, a little more light. You also begin to simplify. The Stoics didn't worship wealth or possessions. They weren't ascetics, but they believed that simplicity cleared the path to freedom. Seneca, one of Rome's richest men, warned that abundance often makes slaves of men. If you wish to be rich, he said, do not add to your money, but subtract from your desires. Let that settle. Maybe your inner clutter isn't just emotional. Maybe it's material. You buy things to feel free, yet you end up more burdened, more distracted, more lost. So you begin to ask, what can I let go of? An obligation you no longer believe in, a goal that's not truly yours, a desire fed by fear, not by values. You start to build your freedom, not through acquisition, but through elimination. And with each unnecessary layer peeled back, your true self steps forward. You begin to say no to things that used to scare you, not because you're cold, but because you've clarified what matters. This, the Stoics would say, is the essence of philosophy: learning how to live, living with intention, living with integrity, living unshackled from what you cannot change. And now, as the room quiets and your thoughts soften, imagine yourself not as a prisoner of circumstance, but as a traveler walking steadily through life. Head high, hands empty, soul light. You don't need everyone to understand you. You don't need every plan to work out. You don't need the world to give you permission, because you've given it to yourself. That you've returned to what the Stoics knew long ago. That real freedom doesn't require escape. It requires awareness. That it requires courage. That it requires choosing again and again to live from the inside out. And in that choice, you are already free. Time, that quiet thief, that invisible river always flowing, never still. You can't hold it, store it, or stretch it, but you can waste it. And you do, more often than you'd like to admit. You blink, and a morning vanishes in social scrolls. You look up, and a year has passed since you meant to begin that project. You keep waiting for the right moment, as if time owes you the perfect conditions. But tonight, Stoicism whispers something bold. You don't need more time. You need more presence. Seneca warned long ago. It's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. His words cut cleanly, centuries later. You have time, but how much of it truly belongs to you? That's the question. Stoicism forces you to face, not to shame you, but to awaken you, because you don't need to fill every second. You need to honor it.so. Imagine your day like a field. Every action plants a seed. Some will grow into fulfillment, others into regret. You may not control the weather, but you do control what you sow. And the Stoics? They were expert cultivators. They didn't count hours. They counted values. A life well lived, they believed, wasn't measured in length, but in purpose. Even one day, lived wisely, could be a triumph. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, often in the early hours before sunrise, reminding himself that time was fleeting, that he was, in his words, dying every day. It sounds grim, but it wasn't. It was grounding, because when you remember death, you remember to live. This Stoic reflection, memento mori, isn't about fear. It's a flashlight. It shines on what matters. It burns away distraction. Historians still argue whether the Stoic focus on mortality was pessimistic or empowering. But modern psychology backs what they felt intuitively. Awareness of time's limits increases our capacity for meaning. You stop postponing. You start prioritizing. You begin to say, now is enough. And that brings us to your schedule, the mountain you climb every day. Meetings, emails, errands, messages, more messages. Your day is full, but is it yours? Seneca asked, show me someone who values their time more than their money. It's rare because time seems abundant until it's gone to so what if, starting tomorrow, you treated your time like gold? What would you stop giving it away to? What would you guard with greater care? A Stoic life isn't crammed with activity. It's carved with precision. You don't need to be busy. You need to be deliberate. You begin to practice saying no, not to reject others, but to protect your highest yes. You start planning, not to control the future, but to greet it with presence. Point 1. Practice the Stoics used. Morning intention, evening reflection. In the morning, ask, what kind of person will I choose to be today? Where will I place my energy? At night, ask, did I live according to my values? Did I waste time on what doesn't matter? Not with guilt, but with gentleness. This is not punishment. It's alignment. And then there's the trap of someday. Someday I'll slow down. Someday I'll write, travel, love more, apologize, forgive. But Stoicism dismantles someday. Someday doesn't exist. Only now does. And this moment, yes. This one is the foundation of your future. You begin to cut through distraction. Social media, mindless scrolling, tasks done out of obligation rather than intention, they all fade. Not because they're evil, but because they don't belong in a life where each hour is sacred. Imagine how different your life would feel if each day had one moment that truly mattered. One decision made from clarity. One conversation spoken from presence. 1 hour lived with your full attention. That's a Stoic day. And from those days, a Stoic life grows. You also begin to simplify, not out of minimalism for trend's sake, but for focus. Every item you remove, every commitment you drop, every noise you silence, gives more space for meaning. The Stoics saw simplicity not as sacrifice, but as strategy. A clear mind needs a clear life. What does time management really mean? It means values management. It means living on purpose. It means choosing what you give your life to, because that's what your time is. And the result? Peace. When you stop wasting time, you stop rushing. When you start honoring time, you start slowing down. And when you finally live in the present, not dragging the past behind you, not leaning anxiously into the future. You feel light again. The tension melts. The breath deepens. The room feels bigger. And maybe, just maybe, you smile at the clock instead of fighting it. Tonight, as you drift, time still ticks. But now it feels different. Not an enemy, not a pressure, but a quiet, precious gift. Each second, a chance to return to what matters. Each breath, a reminder that now is already enough. You don't need more hours. You need more presence. And you're already practicing it. Right here, right now. There's a moment, quiet, raw, when life pushes you against the wall. You lose something. You hear no when your heart needed yes. A plan crumbles. A person leaves. And suddenly, you're face to face with that ancient, unavoidable presence. Hardship that it doesn't knock. It barges in, and you feel it in your body. Tight chest, heavy limbs, the ache of disappointment settling in like dusk. But here's what the Stoics believed. Hardship isn't your enemy, that it's your furnace. Seneca once wrote, difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. He didn't mean you should seek suffering, but when it comes, and it will, it becomes your training ground. Imagine a blacksmith hammering iron again and again. That's not destruction, that's shaping. And life does the same to you. It tests your resolve, tempers your emotions, sharpens your clarity, but only if you allow it to. Only if you stand firm. Stoicism doesn't promise a life free of pain. It promises a life that can endure it, maybe even grow from it. Think of Epictetus, born into slavery, his leg twisted by abuse. Yet he wrote not with bitterness, but with precision. He said, "We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgments about them." That's the Stoic switch. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "How can I grow through this?" And that changes everything. Still, scholars and critics of Stoicism debate this core idea. Does accepting hardship risk complacency? Shouldn't we fight injustice, resist oppression, change what hurts? The Stoics answer with nuance. Resist what you can control. Accept what you cannot. That balance is wisdom. To rage against a locked door is not bravery, it's blindness. But to knock on every door with persistence, knowing some may never open, that's strength. Now consider your own trials. Maybe you've failed publicly. Maybe your body is hurting. Maybe someone let you down so hard it made your bones ache. The Stoics would look you in the eye, not with pity, but with respect, and say, "Good. Here is your chance." Not a chance to prove your worth, but a chance to practice it. You begin to notice. Every hardship contains a seed of resilience, of humility, of redirection. You lose a job, but find your purpose. You feel heartbroken, but learn how to stand alone with grace. You hear a no, and it guides you to a better yes. This isn't romanticizing pain. Stoicism never says you won't cry. It says you won't drown. And the tools they offer? They're not complicated, but they are powerful. Point one is voluntary discomfort. It means occasionally choosing hardship, not to suffer, but to strengthen. Sleep without a pillow. Fast for a day. Walk instead of drive. Seneca practiced this often to remind himself, "I can live with less. I can do hard things. I am not fragile. You might try it tomorrow." Something small, something hard, not to prove anything, just to remind yourself. Comfort is optional. Strength is cultivated. Then there's negative visualization. Imagine losing what you love, not to grieve in advance, but to cherish more deeply, live more fully, and prepare your heart. It sounds dark, but it brings light, because when you've mentally prepared for rain, you don't curse the storm. You bring your umbrella. That's the Stoic art, emotional weatherproofing, and slowly, something shifts. You stop waiting for life to be easy. You stop feeling betrayed when it isn't. You stop thinking pain is a punishment. You start seeing it as part of the curriculum. You begin to admire those around you who suffer with grace. The single mother who never complains. The grandfather who jokes through illness. The friend who listens more than he talks. That they've met hardship and chosen not to be hardened. You can, too. You can carry the weight without letting it bury you. You can bleed without bitterness. You can rise again, not in spite of pain, but because of it. Even in relationships, hardship shows up. Conflict, betrayal, loss. But Stoicism teaches you to respond with steadiness. You learn to forgive, not because others deserve it, but because you deserve peace. You learn to let go, not because it's easy, but because clinging only deepens the wound. You learn to love, fully and vulnerably, while accepting that all things end. And this gives you a strange power, not the power to control, but the power to choose how you move forward. You may not control the earthquake, but you can decide what kind of person rises from the rubble. That Stoic strength tonight. As you lie still, think of the struggles you carry. Don't push them away. Don't dramatize them either. Just see them clearly. Accept them. And whisper, I can use this. Because you can. You already are. The hard thing you're going through right now? It's not the end of you. It's your sharpening stone. And with each breath, you grow more resilient, more grounded, more ready, not for a life without pain, but for a life where pain no longer defines you. There's a place inside you. You may not visit it often. It's quiet there, calm. You don't need to prove anything, fix anything, or defend anything. You just are. It's the eye of the storm, the breath between heartbeats. It's what the Stoics called ataraxia, tranquility, stillness, the deep waters beneath the crashing waves of life. Tonight, we step into that place. You see, peace doesn't arrive when your inbox is empty, your relationships are perfect, or your goals are met. That's the illusion most people chase. The truth is more powerful and more within reach. Peace isn't found. It's chosen again and again, especially when it's hardest. The Stoics knew this. They weren't detached monks living on mountaintops. They lived in palaces, prisons, and public chaos. And still, they trained their minds to remain undisturbed. How? By understanding that it's not the world that needs to calm down, it's us. Marcus Aurelius ruled the Roman Empire during war, plague, betrayal, and yet he wrote like a monk. Nowhere can a man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. That's not poetry. That's a practice that begins with emotional control, not denial, but mastery. Stoicism never says don't feel. It says feel fully, but don't be fooled. Anger may rise, but you don't let it speak for you. Anxiety may buzz, but you don't follow its orders. You pause. You breathe. You ask, is this useful? Is this true? And if not, you release it, not because you're above it, but because you're no longer controlled by it. You begin to realize peace doesn't mean nothing happens, that it means nothing shakes you. Still, Some scholars argue, can anyone truly stay that calm in this modern world? Can Stoic peace survive deadlines, breakups, emergencies? The answer isn't theoretical. It's practical. Just look around. The nurse who smiles while holding pressure on a wound. The parent who stays gentle during a child's tantrum. The athlete who loses the game and still holds their head high up. They've built that peace. You can, too. But to do that, you need to accept reality. This might be the most radical thing the Stoics teach. That peace doesn't come from fixing everything, but from accepting what cannot be fixed. You stop arguing with the moment. You stop wishing people were different, the past undone, or the future guaranteed. You start saying, this is what it is. So what now? Seneca said, a wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be, without wishing for what he is not. Not because he lacks ambition, but because he's grounded in what's real. That's where the peace is. Not in control, but in clarity. So when life changes plans, as it always does, you adapt, not bitterly, not with defeat, but with the dignity of someone who knows they're not defined by circumstance. You also begin to build inner freedom. The world can be noisy, demanding, full of expectations and comparisons. But you don't live from the world. You live from within. You stop letting other people's chaos enter your home. You stop handing your peace to strangers, critics, or algorithms. You reclaim it. You sit quietly without your phone. You walk without music. You write without needing to post it. You stop needing to be seen in order to be. And the stillness, it starts to grow. Peace isn't passive. It's active. It's a decision to come back again and again to what you value most, which brings us to relationships. They test our peace the most. The sharp word, the silence, the pressure to perform or please or protect. But Stoicism offers a gentle reminder. You cannot control how others behave, only how you respond. You learn to stop chasing harmony outside. You bring it with you. You stay kind when others are cruel. You stay honest when others manipulate. You speak with love, but you don't beg to be heard. And in doing so, you remain whole. This doesn't mean you tolerate harm. It means you protect your peace like a sacred fire, never letting anyone extinguish it with their chaos. And when you're wrong, when you hurt someone, you apologize, not to be forgiven, but because it aligns with your values. This is the quiet strength Stoicism teaches, the ability to hold steady even when your heart trembles. So how do you practice peace? You reflect, you journal, you sit with your breath, you take walks without destinations. You create small pauses in your day, moments where nothing needs to happen except awareness. You also create space. Physical clutter becomes mental clutter. So you simplify. You remove what doesn't serve your soul. You let silence be a friend, not a threat. And slowly, peace becomes your default. Not always, but often enough to feel the shift. You laugh more. You rush less. You stop catastrophizing every delay or disappointment. You begin to trust yourself again. Because peace is not the absence of pressure, it's the presence of perspective. And tonight, as your eyes grow heavy, notice the difference in your breath. Slower, smoother, like water settling in a glass. This is the peace the Stoics spoke of. Not the kind you wait for, but the kind you build. That you've begun building it. And you'll keep building it. Point one breath. One moment. One quiet return to yourself. The world asks you to choose every day. What to do, what to say, what to prioritize, what to believe. But amid all these choices, there's one skill that quietly shapes your life more than any other: wisdom. In decision-making, not intelligence, not instinct. Wisdom, that calm, measured clarity that sees past impulse, fear, and ego, and acts from principle. The Stoics placed wisdom at the very core of virtue. Without it, courage becomes recklessness, justice becomes judgment, and self-discipline becomes self-denial. Wisdom is the thread that ties your values to your actions, and like every skill, it must be practiced. You begin with a question the Stoics asked constantly: is this within my control? It's deceptively simple, but that one filter slices through. Chaos like a blade, the job offer, the argument, the opportunity that's slipping through your fingers. You pause. You ask, what part of this can I truly influence? Only then do you decide. Epictetus taught that a wise person doesn't rush. First say to yourself what you would be, he wrote, and then do what you have to do. In modern life, though, speed is rewarded. Quick replies, hot takes, immediate, yes. But Stoicism invites you to step back, to let urgency pass, to ask, what aligns with my character? This is where wisdom lives, in the space between stimulus and response. Still, critics of Stoicism argue, can you really pause that long? In today's world, is there time to ponder when the world demands instant answers? But wise decisions don't take hours. They take awareness. And awareness only takes seconds. That breath before replying to an angry message. That moment of silence before saying yes to something that doesn't feel right. That willingness to ask why before you chase another goal. Stoic wisdom doesn't slow you down. It frees you from false urgency. You also learn to separate emotion from action. Marcus Aurelius wrote, if it's not right, don't do it. If it's not true, don't say it. That clarity is available to you, but only when emotion isn't steering the wheel. So how do you make wise decisions in daily life? You start with principles. Stoicism is not about rules. It's about internal guidance. You define what matters: integrity, fairness, presence, courage. And then you weigh your choices against those values. Will this action honor my principles? If not, you don't do it. Even if it's easier, faster, or more profitable, that's wisdom. That it's the friend who walks away from gossip, even if it means being left out. That it's the leader who owns a mistake, even if it costs them approval. That it's the parent who listens instead of lecturing. Wisdom is quiet, but it's unmistakable. You also begin to see that decisions shape your life's direction. Every yes is a no to something else. Every shortcut has a shadow. Every compromise, a cost. So you pause, not out of hesitation, but intention. You imagine your future self, the one who looks back at this moment and says, thank you for choosing what was right, not what was easy. Seneca reminded us, no man was ever wise by chance. Wisdom is built brick by brick, through reflection, failure, and patience. Point one, powerful practice. The evening review. At the end of your day, reflect. What decisions did I make today? Were they aligned with my values? Or did I let emotion or ego decide for me? This isn't judgment. It's calibration. Over time, you start noticing patterns. You recognize your weak spots when you say yes to please or avoid discomfort, or chase short-term pleasure. And then you adjust. You begin to see every moment as an opportunity to practice discernment. Even small choices matter: what you eat, how you speak, whether you hit snooze or get up to write that page, stretch, meditate, breathe. These micro decisions shape your days, and your days become your life. And when the big decisions come, the job change, the breakup, the move, you're ready. Because you've trained. You've been lifting the small weights. Wisdom also means knowing when not to act. Not every problem is yours to solve. Not every conflict needs your reply. Not every opportunity is meant for you. You learn to wait. You learn to listen. You learn to trust that saying no to something wrong is saying yes to your peace. And then, slowly, you become someone others trust. Not just because you're kind or capable, but because your decisions have weight. Because your actions align with your words. Because you don't react. You respond. That's the Stoic way. And tonight, as you drift, think of one decision you've been circling. One you've avoided or rushed or clouded with doubt. Now bring it into the light. Ask, what part of this is in my control? What would the wiser version of me choose? Not the braver, not the richer, not the more liked, the wiser. And if you still don't know, wait. The Stoics taught that sometimes not acting is the wisest choice of all, because wisdom isn't loud, that it's not perfect, it's consistent, that it's gentle, and it's yours. Every time you choose clarity over impulse, you don't need to be a philosopher. You just need to pause, breathe, and choose the kind of life you won't regret. One decision at a time. Prosperity. It's a word that often glitters. Gold, success, status, everything polished and public. But when the Stoics speak of prosperity, they mean something quieter, something deeper, something sustainable. Because real prosperity, they would say, isn't found in what you own, that it's found in who you are, when no one's watching and when everything else has been stripped away. Tonight, we turn toward that kind of wealth. The Stoic kind. The kind that can't be stolen by thieves or shaken by market crashes. The kind that doesn't glitter, but glows. You begin to see how easy it is to mistake abundance for fulfillment. A better job, a bigger house, more followers, more influence. And yet, how many people reach those heights only to feel emptier? That's not prosperity. That's exhaustion in disguise. Seneca warned. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. His words reach through time like a hand on your shoulder. The Stoics weren't against wealth. In fact, Seneca himself was one of the richest men in Rome, but they were against dependence on it. They asked, do you own your possessions, or do they own you? That's where sustainable prosperity begins, with detachment, not from life, but from the illusion that happiness lives in what's external. You may enjoy comfort. You may pursue success, but you don't need it to feel whole, and that's freedom. Historians still wrestle with this tension. Were the Stoics too idealistic? Could anyone truly live with so little attachment in a world that demands so much? Yet here's what we see. Those who live by Stoic values, even in today's world, are often the most centered, because they know that no promotion, possession, or praise will give what self-mastery already holds. So what does Stoic prosperity look like? It looks like waking up with clarity, going to bed without regret, living aligned with your values even when it costs you something, being at peace even when things fall apart. It looks like knowing what's enough. That's a revolutionary idea. Enough. Because the world tells you to crave endlessly, upgrade everything, chase the next milestone. But a Stoic steps off that treadmill and asks, what do I actually need? What brings real joy, real nourishment, real stability? And then they build a life around that. You start simplifying, not as an aesthetic, but as a way of returning to what matters. Less clutter, fewer distractions, more presence, more depth. And from that simplicity, something powerful grows. Gratitude. You no longer need more to feel more. You start to feel rich drinking water mindfully, talking with a friend, watching the sky change that you're no longer waiting for prosperity. You're practicing it, and this shift affects everything, especially your relationships, because prosperity, for the Stoics, isn't just personal. It's communal. That a truly rich life includes generosity, not just in money, but in time, in patience, in kindness, in the courage to forgive and to serve. Imagine wealth measured not by your bank account, but by how many lives feel lighter because you exist. That Stoic prosperity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What we do now echoes in eternity." He wasn't speaking of monuments. He was speaking of virtue, your quiet strength, your calm under pressure, your integrity when no one's watching. That's the kind of wealth that multiplies. And yet, prosperity also includes the unseen realm, your spiritual life. You may not use that word often, but you feel it, the longing for peace, for purpose, for alignment. The Stoics were not religious in the modern sense, but they believed in living according to nature, which meant living in harmony with reason, justice, and humility. To them, spiritual prosperity meant inner freedom, not being tossed by desire, not being broken by fear, not being owned by your appetites. That it meant knowing yourself deeply and liking what you find. You begin to reflect, where do I feel richest? What practices make me feel full regardless of outcomes? Maybe it's journaling, or stillness, or serving someone else, or doing something difficult with grace. Whatever it is, that's where your true wealth lives. And the Stoics didn't expect you to live perfectly. They expected you to wake up and align yourself again, to fall, reflect, and rise again, to measure success not in applause, but in inner alignment. Even when life gets messy, even when it feels unfair, even when the path forward is unclear, you prosper, not because everything goes your way, but because you remain steady either way. That sustainability, that's a kind of wealth that outlives your name. And tonight, as the world slows down, let this thought settle. You already hold more than you realize, not in your wallet, but in your wisdom, your presence, your principles. And when you carry those into the world, when you live with less craving, more clarity, less rush, more reverence, you build a life that money can't buy. A life that feels whole. A life that gives more than it takes. A life that is quietly, deeply, and sustainably prosperous. Freedom, it's a word etched into flags, written into laws, and whispered in revolutions. But the Stoics weren't focused on outer revolts. They were more concerned with an inner emancipation, the kind that can't be handed to you, only chosen by you. Tonight, we walk through that door. You might not be in chains, but you still feel trapped sometimes, don't you? By doubt, by regret, by cravings, by fear of what others think, or fear of what you might become if you finally let go of what doesn't serve you. This is the cage the Stoics saw most clearly. the one inside you. Epictetus, who lived as a literal slave before becoming a philosopher, said it with piercing clarity. No man is free who is not master of himself. Not master over others, master over himself, his thoughts, his impulses, his emotions, his expectations, because that's where your soul gets stuck when your peace depends on things outside your control. You want to be free? Then stop chasing the approval of others. Stop needing everything to go your way before you feel okay. Stop believing that anything outside of your own character can grant you peace, and start practicing inner liberty. What does that look like? Looks like being able to walk away from noise, from drama, from things that steal your stillness. It looks like hearing criticism without crumbling. It looks like facing fear and saying, "You don't get to run my life anymore." But that's not easy, especially now that we live in a world that thrives on your dependency, on your likes, your attention, your outrage. It pulls at you constantly. How do you protect your freedom? You decide what has power over you. That notification? You can check it, or you can breathe instead. That toxic thought. You can believe it, or you can observe it, question it, let it pass. That person who belittled you? You can react, or you can rise above, untouched. Still, scholars argue, is it truly possible to be free when we're bound by biology, society, economy? The Stoics would say, you might not control the external bars, but you can dissolve the internal ones. They remind us, freedom is not the absence of hardship, it's the absence of slavery to it. You can experience grief and still be free from despair. You can feel fear and still act with courage. You can live with uncertainty and still choose peace. And then there's anxiety, the silent jailer of the modern age. It paces in your mind, whispering all the things that could go wrong. It shrinks your world down to what might happen. It convinces you that control is the only safety. But Stoicism breaks that illusion. Epictetus taught, some things are up to us, and some are not. Anxiety often lives in the second category. So when you feel it rise, ask, is this mine to carry? If not, let it go. Not in neglect, but in trust that you're not dismissing life's challenges, that you're choosing not to carry what you were never meant to hold. That's soul liberation. Another key? Acceptance, not passive surrender. Active clarity. When you accept what is, you stop wasting energy resisting it. You stop shouting at the rain. You bring an umbrella, or you dance. Marcus Aurelius said, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. So instead of asking, why me? You ask, what now? And then you move forward. Not as a victim, but as a student. As a soul slowly unchaining itself. You also learn to let go. Let go of the grudge that burns your hands. Let go of the need to be right, to win, to control how others perceive you. Let go of the version of you that can't rest unless every detail is resolved. The Stoics teach that what you release defines your strength more than what you keep. And every time you let go, you rise. You rise into inner freedom. It feels like silence in your chest, stillness behind your eyes, a trust that nothing can truly take you from yourself. Even when things fall apart, you remain whole. Even when you feel pain, you remain peaceful. Even when life says no, you remain free. This is not indifference. It's invincibility, because once your soul is no longer owned by anything external, No one can take your peace. And that's the greatest liberation of all. The SO tonight. Lie back. Feel where you've been gripping too tight. Notice where you've built mental prisons, expectations, resentments, fears, and then, one by one, unlock the door. Let yourself breathe again. You don't need to earn this freedom. You only need to choose it. And with each choice, you return to yourself, your center, your calm, your unshakable soul that you've come a long way. Through hardship, through inner storms, through the tug of war between what you can control and what you must release. And now, here you are, standing at the threshold of something quietly powerful, becoming, because that's what the Stoics believed life was about. Not collecting trophies, not reaching a finish line, but becoming, every day, a truer, stronger, freer version of yourself. That it's a journey without an end. And that's what makes it beautiful. Personal development, in the Stoic sense, doesn't mean becoming someone new. It means returning to who you already are beneath the noise, polishing the soul, strengthening the character, clearing away the clutter until your inner compass points true north. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Not think about it. Not talk about it. Be it." You start each day with a choice. Will you drift or will you shape? Will you react or will you respond? Will you chase comfort or build character? Personal development is not a course. It's a posture. And the first posture is this: self-awareness. The Stoics journaled, reflected, practiced nightly self-audits. They didn't ask, "Was today successful?" They asked, "Was I just? Was I honest? Did I live according to my values?" That's the mirror they looked into. And so can you. Tonight, ask yourself, what did I learn today? Where did I grow? What small courage did I practice? It might be that you paused before snapping, or admitted you were wrong, or walked away from distraction and chose something meaningful instead. These are victories, because becoming who you want to be is not a single act. It's 1,000 tiny ones. You also begin to understand. Growth means mastering yourself, not the world. The Stoics didn't say, "Win every argument." They said, "Win the one inside you. The one that says you're not enough. The one that pushes you to people please. The one that clings to comfort and avoids discomfort." To master yourself is to recognize your patterns and choose differently. To face your habits not with shame, but with curiosity. Why do I avoid this? Why do I crave that? What am I afraid of? And is that fear true? You stop being a stranger to your own soul. You begin to trust yourself again. That trust becomes your resilience, because the Stoic path is not smooth. It's not made of shortcuts. It's forged in trial, in friction, in falling and choosing to stand again. Wiser, humbler, clearer, Seneca taught. Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body. So each challenge becomes your teacher. Each mistake, your textbook. Each failure, your curriculum. And yes, sometimes growth hurts. You'll feel the discomfort of letting go of who you used to be. But the pain of growth is different from the pain of stagnation. Point one is sharp and temporary. The other dull and endless. And growth is not just inward. It ripples outward, especially in your relationships. You begin to speak with more kindness because you've tamed your own harshness. You forgive more easily because you've faced your own flaws. You stop needing others to change in order for you to be okay. You just love steadily, freely. Without demand, that's the Stoic kind of relationship. One based on mutual respect, not dependency. One where both people grow together, without losing themselves. And as you develop this way of living, something quiet but undeniable begins to unfold. A sense of meaning, not the kind you chase, but the kind that emerges when your daily life reflects your deepest values. You don't need to wait for a purpose to find you. You become purposeful through how you show up, at work, in conversation, in silence, in action, and gradually, your life becomes a statement, not a philosophy in motion. Still, the Stoics never claimed perfection. Marcus Aurelius admitted his struggles. Seneca often contradicted himself. Epictetus reminded his students not to preach what they couldn't yet practice. You stop chasing flawlessness. You chase integrity. Are you aligned today? That's enough. Are you growing, however slowly? That's enough. Are you living awake? Then you are becoming. And tonight, as the quiet deepens and your body softens into stillness, recognize this. You are already further than you think, that you've questioned, that you've chosen, that you've stayed awake when sleepwalking was easier, that you've listened to that part of you that wants more. Not more things, but more truth, more clarity, more strength. And the Stoics would say, that is enough, because this life, this exact one you're living, is your field for practice. And with each breath, each step, each act of courage or reflection or self-restraint, you are becoming the person you were meant to be. No finish line, just faithful steps, again and again, until one day you look around, not with pride, but with quiet peace, and realize you've built a life that feels like home. A life of virtue. A life of depth. A life of meaning. A life worthy of your soul. Now let it all settle. Let the words fade. Let your body grow heavier. Let your mind soften, like a candle flickering at the end of the wick. That you've walked through so much tonight, through storms and silence, through history and heart, through fear and into freedom, not with force, but with understanding, the kind that sinks into your bones long after the noise is gone. Right now, nothing is required of you. That you've practiced enough. You've learned enough that you've earned this rest. And as your breath deepens, your heartbeat slows, and your eyelids grow heavier, remember, you don't need to rush to become. You are already on the path. Each choice, each small return to yourself is a victory. The Stoics taught us that peace isn't something we wait for. It's something we cultivate. And tonight, you've planted seeds of peace, that of presence, of power that doesn't shout, but hums quietly from within. Drift now. Let go. There's no problem to solve, no image to protect, no standard to meet, just you whole, tired, honest, and free. Let the world keep spinning. You are rooted. Let tomorrow come. You are ready. Let this moment stretch into stillness, into safety, into sleep, because your soul knows the way now. It knows how to stay steady when the winds rise, how to return to calm when the waves crash, how to breathe when everything feels uncertain. That's your freedom. That's your prosperity. That's your peace. And you carry it with you, even in dreams, sweet dreams.